Hello and welcome everybody to this our new moon eclipse reading. And I suppose essentially a recap of how Taurus season has pronounced itself thus far and where it may be going. I don't know about you, but the heavy emphasis on Piscean energy cannot come to an end fast enough. It has been, as always, and I have a Pisces moon, so I'm not wanting to offend anybody from a Piscean predominance, but Pisces is a lot of work for the thinking person. Pisces is a lot of work for the conscious person because it forces us to spend so much time in subconscious energy and try to figure out what the fuck is going on inside of us that is making it so hard for things to manifest with joy and love outside of us. And generally I don't associate Piscean energy with anger, but Mars has been playing some little games here and there, causing these very unexpected moments of complete frustration and irritation. Additionally, there's a lot of conflicting energies that we've been dealing with, which have sort of, because we've been so deeply in the subconscious, we're not formulating our ideas tangibly externally in a way that actually allows us to drive ourselves forward, even though there's progress taking place, because we find ourselves constantly in this ebb and flow, weighing pros and cons, never really being able to step outside of that. And of course, what happens with Piscean energy when you're in that space is it becomes self-doubt, as opposed to a reinforcement of self or a reinforcement of drive to move forward. So Taurus hasn't really had much of a fighting chance of pronouncing itself. Even with the nodes being heavily driven by Taurian energy too. And of course, its opposite, Scorpio. So, again, I feel like we are becoming so conscious of our experience that we automatically integrate the archetype of the season, whether we want to or not. It's just we understand that cycle. We understand the need to figure out, in terms of Taurus, who we are, what we value in ourselves, what we value in our environment, the relationships that we value or don't value, the experiences that we value or don't value, the memories that we value or we don't value. And this is obviously, as we're in that first decan of Taurus, very much centered around what we express as worth in ourselves, what we value. Oh my god, it's like, I don't value neighbors still, because they're very annoying, and some reason they always think that right outside of my living room is the place for them to have dog problems. Again, this is just, I'm only expressing this because I don't really care. It's like, I'm totally fine with my neighbors, and but I am easily irritated by people, and I'm finding it very difficult to coexist because I sense how mindless the vast majority of people are. And that's another part of this spiritual process that is becoming increasingly frustrating in these energies, is because we're doing so much work on ourselves, it is almost impossible to tolerate the absolute nonsense on display around us, with people who indulge in enormous superficiality, enormous wastefulness, enormous purposelessness that's all wrapped up in the absurdity of the superficial, nonsensical culture that they aspire to be a part of. You know, a good example of that, and it is very Taurian, and it's very Taurus in Uranus as well, and it's also very Aquarian at the same time. This ridiculous nonsense about Elon Musk and Twitter. It's like, who gives a rat's ass? Why is the narrative not about why everybody should not be on Twitter? Why is this such a pivotal, defining aspect of our culture? Who owns a stupid online platform where I don't even know who these people are that waste their lives spewing their opinions on Twitter? I suppose I shouldn't denigrate them any more than I expect somebody else would think I'm a lunatic for making videos like this, but at the same time, I'm investing time and energy into trying to convey a human condition. I'm sure that there would be a million arguments against me in that, which I guess would just go along with this energy in general. Anyway, I'm not going to spend forever talking about my own irritants. But what I will say is that despite all of this, I know that there's great beauty in the stillness that we can find when we remove ourselves from all of this nonsense. And that really, the choices that we face in life are, as we've discussed many times before, not really choices. The more we become conscious and self-aware and self-loving, because the choice that we're going to make, the decision that we're going to make, is going to be the one that serves love. And the only way to do that is to choose what's best for ourselves, because then in turn, we're going to be able to evoke love in our lives, right? And then affect other people, and then in turn build and grow. So clearly, right now, we're being challenged on that with the self-worth part of Taurus. And when I was shuffling the tarot earlier, there were a ton of times when the Eight of Swords would come out randomly. Now initially I was going to do, allow the jumpers to dictate the spread, but in the end I felt more inclined to do a Celtic cross for this, for whatever reason, but I would like to emphasize that Eight of Swords was very prevalent, wanted to be seen at all costs, and Pisces will do that. Pisces will cause an Eight of Swords to emerge in a way that is compounding and forces us to take stock and to actually sit with our feelings and understand what we are not valuing in ourselves and where we're struggling to find value in ourselves, and where we are still triggered into enormous insecurity and discomfort with how we integrate our experience. So anyway, I haven't been feeling that bad in general. I mean, I've been practicing self-care. I have been spending a lot of time focused on trying to give myself the space to make the right decisions about my future and my commitments. And right now we're in a little bit of a stagnation period anyway, because, well, I think we will probably see some shifts with Venus and Neptune, like tomorrow, Wednesday. Things will slowly start to move forward, and then by next week, after this new moon, black moon eclipse, I think we'll really start to see a shift forward. So basically, I'm recording this right at the end of, I don't want to say the worst of this energy, but the most intense of it, which is a resolution point, right? So, I mean, that's exactly where we're at. It's like, you know, sorry to be disgusting, but the white head on the boil, like, and then, you know, that's happening probably in the next 24 hours. So hopefully you will receive this after that shift has taken place, and you'll find a more constructive, kinder, more externalized expression of love, and, as we shall see in this reading, more reciprocity, more forgiveness, and more inspiration. So on that note, because May is going to be a very big month for all of us. I mean, but from an astrological perspective, it's huge and far more expansive than and edifying than what we've experienced thus far this year. So I will shut up in terms of this narrative that I've been sharing with you, and get into some of our cards, because we have a good few to get through. So I think I didn't pull a spirit animal oracle card because it just didn't feel like it lent itself to this particular reading. I did, however, decide to pull two sacred destiny oracle cards. And we got freedom and transformation. Now, I'm always with these cards, I focus on them more from an abstract point of view, because these are abstract concepts, right? So you have to really adapt it to how you feel about freedom right now. And our concept of freedom changes with time. Sometimes we feel the deep need to find freedom in our finances. Sometimes it's in our heart. Sometimes it is philosophically freeing ourselves from being tethered to ideas and rules that don't serve us. So right now, I would imagine that in our Taurian self-evaluation, freedom would be at this early stage of the energy, based on where the compromises are within ourselves, of how we allow ourselves to experience freedom. So something to think about there, because that will vary obviously based on our individual personalities and experience. So, and obviously how you view that leads to transformation. And you'll notice that both cards feature elements of nature with flight involved. So also a strong indication that there is an emphasis towards that in our projection forward, that we are being lifted out of something and being set on our course. And transformation is a constant, but focusing on how we value ourselves. Where is that transformation in the way that you treat yourself right now, right? And that's what this whole energy is really about. And we're going to see through our reading how we go about that, or how we can go about that if we want to harness and use the energy, and how it will play out for us. From the Sacred Power reading cards, we got a very broad concept card, so I'm interested to hear the message of the Tree of Life card. I feel like everybody must walk their dog at exactly the same time. Well, it is warm, so I guess people are going a little bit later. Create strong foundations to support future goals and aspirations. Of course, self-worth is a lot to do with that, right? The breath of life is all around us, self-sustaining. The universal tree of life provides a gateway to connect us to the knowledge of self. You are deeply connected in the universe and the world around you. When you respond to the actions and reactions of the earth and its people, you ultimately decide how you will grow and thrive. The tree of life requires you to look at your breath and to ground yourself in the present moment. It's very Taurian, right? And it is very much about how we respond to things like, you know, annoying people walking noisy dogs outside at night, or, you know, I won't go into the details of the other things that frustrated me today, but those types of triggers, you know, the disappointments in people. I mean, that's been huge for me. Not key relationships in my life, but, you know, as I'm sort of working out where I head next in my life, I've sort of tried to take the pulse of the people that are in my life locally, here in Los Angeles, and, you know, do they fit in my life? Am I just not making enough effort, and that's why I don't feel that they're really in my life? Or do I really want them more in my life? And the discovery most of the time is no, because as I it sounds so awful, but as I make the efforts to improve myself and to be more healthy as a human, both spiritually and physically, and obviously emotionally, I find there's an enormous amount of incompatibility. And of course, yes, you don't want to be in judgment of people for not doing that work, because they just haven't come to that point in their life. But do I want to be bogged down with people that, you know, when I have made decisions to live my life substance-free, to have to sit with, you know, I mean, I'm talking about, you know, if you've been watching my videos, I've talked about cannabis, for example, you know, I got rid of all of that from my life. I used to drink alcohol quite regularly, and I don't do that either. There's nothing, so maybe it's more relatable with alcohol than cannabis for you, but there's literally nothing worse than being a sober person who's trying to be social with a bunch of people who are drunk. And that's kind of the same thing with people that are chronic users of cannabis. It's like, oh God, like, it's like you can't even see the crutch. You can't even see that you're not allowing yourself to express the potential of the beauty inside of you, because you're anesthetizing yourself. You're making yourself small all the time. And to hear the justifications for it and the self-righteousness in it, you know, it borders on enormous stupidity. And I have to say, I've never actually been that tethered in any bad habit. You know, it's like I've always had extended periods in any day where I would not be using any given substance. So I always was very aware of the value of my sobriety and what happens in those sober moments, and what you gain from them. But a lot of people aren't, because they're terrified of facing themselves, and they can't actually sit with themselves in being fully present, you know? And again, we do have to find forgiveness in that, and we'll get to that. But still, I don't know why I was telling you that, but hopefully, as you're watching it, it makes sense. Nature does not concern itself with the future. Plants know exactly what they need to do in any given moment. Living in the present will provide you with more time. Your presence is all that is required right now. You are strong and resilient. Hold your space. And that also goes to maybe a message for all of us, that because I've been struggling with that. You know, I want that wheel to be turning. I want to be there instead of here, and I'm not savoring the here all the time. A lot of the time I am, but not all the time. So it's a reminder that, you know, the journey is what's most important, you know. So, you know, if you're always wanting to be at the destination, you're not going to really get much. Sorry, this t-shirt feels very uncomfortable, and it's mainly because I had to get my car, my brake pads on my car replaced today, and while they were doing that, I went to the beach, and I got sunburned, so, yeah. Where are your roots? Plant and keep your feet firmly on the ground now. Any sudden change may cause instability in your personal life. Dig your roots deep into the earth to create a firm foundation that you can build from. Are you relying too much on the support of others to help you grow? You have the answers within you to determine your direction of growth, but you must be willing to face your inner self and core beliefs. With solid nurturing and time, you will begin to see results. And I think it's important to understand that, you know, when we talk about roots, we're talking about being a part of a system. So think of how you connect in with what's taking place in your life right now. The reason I say that is because you'll see from another card that we have that there's a little bit of a contradiction there, because relying too much on the support of others would be in conflict with something that we'll discuss very shortly, but we'll get to that and we'll discover where the differences are, and where there's room to understand the nuances. You have the answers within you to determine your direction of growth, but you must be willing to face your inner self and core beliefs. With solid nurturing and time, you will begin to see results. Family matters are of concern now. Be open to solutions to achieve the outcome you desire. Be careful with decision making. Compromising too much over an issue will leave you feeling powerless. Like a branch on a tree, growth will occur in any area that supports the core structure, or it will break and drop in order to maintain the overall strength of the tree itself. You may need to drop a branch or two to solidify your point of view or to reach a resolution. Patience is key. Affirmation: I am unified through presence and action. My strength is supported with loving roots. Excuse me. I have allergies right now too, so like a real bundle of joy. It's sparkling water and kombucha, and it's my drink of choice. It's delicious and it keeps my gut healthy. Where were we? Oh yeah, this is where we get into the interesting concepts. So we have 2 cards from the Soul's Journey lesson deck. And this is where we had forgiveness and growth. So let's just focus on these individually. So forgiveness. I acknowledge that harboring resentment blocks the flow of love. And obviously, from what we've discussed thus far, that's a very good piece of advice to receive in terms of if you are triggered in any way right now, if you are irritable or irritated by somebody or something, or just letting go so that you can feel more freedom to transform, right? Again, we just heard with the tree of life, like, losing some of the branches to keep the tree itself alive. There is some shedding that probably needs to take place. Excuse me. There is. And surrendering to that is going to obviously just make it very easy. Whatever it is, habits, thoughts, patterns, people, relationships, material possessions, whatever it may be. So let's read forgiveness. Forgive myself for getting burned in the sun, having itchy skin. I acknowledge that harboring resentment blocks the flow of love. You can never flow with your natural energy of love unless you release the negative energy of hate, anger, intolerance, or blame. Every soul in your path has free will, and you have no control over that. What you do have control over is how you react to the manifestation of others' free will. So it's about your reaction, right? Holding on to that negative energy will strengthen karmic cycles, and forgiveness can break the pattern. The most important person you must learn to forgive is always yourself. Blaming yourself for failures blocks the natural flow of love, which will attract all good things into your life. It's a very, very simple acceptance, right? And so, why is it so fucking hard to do? Well, because it's easy to get irritated, especially if we're not centered and if we're not able to just let go. We have to be present in the moment and we have to let go. We just have to let things flow right through us, right? So, and as for growth, I want to expand my consciousness and my awareness. Well, forgiveness and will naturally lead to that, right? So, you are constantly being presented with situations that enable you to develop your inner wisdom and assist you in advancing to higher levels of understanding. The lesson is to be aware of these events and recognize them for what they are. To live a mindful life is not only about respecting and honoring those around you, it is also about recognizing every person and circumstance on your path as a teacher. The constant chatter and diversions of life on earth can distract you from the signposts that Spirit has left on your path. Take the time to be aware of the bountiful wisdom that has been laid before you. Acknowledge these gifts and take them to heart as you continue your sojourn in this physical dimension. Don't look for the opportunities that you think you need. Instead, be receptive to the opportunities that are given. Well, we may as well just not do a reading then, right? We'll just let whatever happen, happen. Can't even speak English. You know what I mean. Okay, so one more oracle card, which was the one that was sort of contradictory to the Tree of Life message in a certain way, but then I realized not really, because the Tree of Life was saying that you really need to be focused on where you root yourself and how you root yourself and where what you allow into your system, essentially, right? What nourishes you. So the advice card from the Sufi Wisdom Oracle deck is listen to advice. Guidance is needed to cross the ocean of life. And guidance comes in many forms. It can be angelic, it can be human, it can be embracing an experience as guidance, right? But hopefully you are lucky enough to have some people who can hear you, and in listening are able to offer insight. And very often insight comes from listening to things and places and people and content, whatever it is, that we wouldn't normally turn to. So Uranus always likes to play with us when it comes to that. Guidance is necessary to find your path. Don't enter the ocean blinded by pride. A guide is a shelter in your search. The road is long and you are blind. Your guide keeps watch over the way. An important aspect of Sufi wisdom is following the guidance of a master. A Sufi wayfarer cannot make a journey without the guidance of the master. Who points the way towards certain paths that he or his predecessors have traveled. We're being guided here to listen to the advice of those who come from the heart. And that is a distinction, right? And do we know how to recognize that when advice is coming from the heart of a person, or even from ourselves? You know, our best advice to ourselves is when we listen to our heart, right? A person who is connected with the heart is totally free and truly wants to share that freedom with the whole world. Isn't that an ideal to aspire to? Sufi wisdom is with you, tingling in your heart and singing in the cells of your being. Divine guidance is coming your way to remove the uncertainty about an issue in your life. Please, I need that. Soon, clouds of uncertainty will lift and love will guide you to meet the secrets within you. Even if up to now you have handled just about every facet of your life, you are currently facing a challenge that requires help from a wiser and more experienced source. Beloved soul, your confusion over this matter is not caused by any negative reason, but by your lack of experience in dealing with such issues. The guidance that you will receive is going to bring you fulfillment because you are now forced to grow to gain new insight and to further develop your character. Follow that sacred offering and know that all is indeed for your benefit. Your mantra, our mantra: I commit to asking for advice in matters in which I lack experience. I will seek the advice of those who come from the heart. I think we'll need to take some time to figure out who those people are or what those sources are, right? Because that's something that we really have to be intuitively aligned with. And I know a lot of people are going through a lot of changes right now in their life. You know, a lot of people are planning changes in any case. This whole year is filled with that. And obviously the world outside around us is even more tempestuous. I don't think that we've ever experienced times like this where there are so many potential complexities at play, and so many people consciously aware of it because we participate in all of it through the information age, you know, so it's different than anything that's been experienced before, and it's palpable in everything. So I guess I'm just saying that because we really do have a responsibility unto ourselves to make sure that we are grounding ourselves and that we're carrying love and forgiveness in our heart with a focus on growth and freedom, and always being willing to transform ourselves. and be rooted to the tree of life. So let's get into our Celtic cross. So we got a lot of pages in this reading. I haven't clarified any of the cards. I do have a deck to do that just in case we need it. So I'm looking here, and at the very, very center of our reading, we have the Ace of Wands. So all of this, all of our oracle cards and what we've discussed so far really sets us up for that Ace of Wands, and that is to note that we have this opportunity for divine inspiration right now. And when I say divine inspiration, I mean whatever it is that is going to drive you forward into making these evolutionary changes that are required in order for us to level up spiritually, and both in our, you know, our 5D aspirations and in our 3D human experience. And it's coming. Don't worry. The inspiration is, if it hasn't already arrived, it is coming. That's the message for us here. Everything that we got from the oracle cards are basic. It's advice to remind us how we open ourselves up to that, how we can make sure that we don't let it pass us by, and that we can anchor ourselves, not anchor ourselves, harness that inspiration to drive us forward, right? What crosses us right now? The devil. So either we're distracted, and I actually can tell from the card, I just intuitively, I'm receiving the energy, which is anger. When we carry anger within us, we become belittled. We inflict that upon ourselves because we're not actually giving ourselves the best of ourselves. You know, we're not, it doesn't matter whether you're angry at other people. Being angry with other people gets in the way. Remember, the forgiveness card. I acknowledge that harboring resentment blocks the flow of love within me, right? So that is what that devil energy is. And of course, the devil is codependency, it's addictions. Where does that come from? Suppressing anger. And rather than actually working through it, acknowledging the feeling and then letting it go. I'm getting tingles all over right now. I feel like people are touching me. You gotta let it go. I'm letting it go. Let's all take a deep breath together, right? We're supported by the angelic field, so I'm gonna do it with you. Deep breath in for the count of 6. And release it. And do that as many times as you want if you want to pause this right now so that you give yourself the time to fully eliminate it, because sometimes you gotta do it several times before you feel completely clear, you know. But I only needed one, so I'm good right now. Because I had my freak out earlier on today, and I expressed it in writing to somebody who messed something up for me. Who cares, right? I let it go. And I'm working through it, even though there's consequences, and now I have to do 10 times more work in order to remedy that. But whatever. And it's going to cost me a lot more money. Okay, I guess I'm not really over it. Let's do one more. I forgive you. Okay. Go with next in my reading. I don't really like doing this. So, you know, what crowns us right now is the Six of Pentacles, and the Six of Pentacles is about giving and receiving. So again, it's a balance card. I mean, a lot of this, I'm not going into mundane tarot right now, so we'll stick to the broader concepts, and you know, that is really what this comes down to. It's giving and receiving, being open, forgiving and receiving love, giving love, receiving forgiveness, not just from other people, but on our universal path, right? That's really how it works. You know, if you're receptive, if you're open, you're certainly not going to be resonating at a frequency of anger or you know, anxiety or depression or whatever it is. And I feel like I've been learning a lot about that. I've really been making some pretty radical breakthroughs with how I handle my anxiety. I mean, as you know, if you've been watching, you know, when I stopped using cannabis to sleep, I went through a week of like anxiety and frustration, and like I was very down on myself because I was like, you know, oh, like you're like a junkie or something. You know, of course I wasn't, but yeah, it's like, it's not even just about that. It's like you're processing other disappointment. You're disappointed in yourself for not having the wisdom, and but all that is pointless. You know, who cares? It's like, so, I hate to quote Oprah, but when you know better, you do better, right? So it's like, that's just what we're on the path to do. But we have to be generous of our spirit, which means that we can't shut ourselves off. We can't be like, oh, everybody's a moron, everybody's an asshole, everyone hurt me, everyone did this or whatever else. You know, it's like, we can't. We have to let go of that, because we will receive for doing that. And I do it. I mean, even in my, you know, job search currently, you know, it's like I go through all these interviews with, you know, the same roles, but it's been a very lengthy interview process for the two that I've actually actively pursued. And, you know, it's a weird thing because you go through that kind of scrutiny, you go through all kinds of self-image problems, but you also go through sort of, you convince yourself, it's like, well, I don't want to do that, you know, and it's like, am I protecting myself, or am I actually realizing that I'm not attached to it? And it's a little bit of both. You know, it's the full spectrum of growth through the process. But the reality is that I want my goal would be that, because I've put love into it, that they both want me. And then I find myself with a beautiful choice to make, you know, which will be based on what I love, not on, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? That's just an example of that. So, anyway. In our past, we have the Justice card. And the Justice card here is really about something happening in our lives, which is pivotal to all of this. So figure out what that is in your life. But something that happened that forced a shift, which ultimately on our divine path was in our favor. We'll take a clarifier on it. Actually, I better take one now just to see exactly what the context is on that. But I mean, you know, sometimes that can be a tower, you know. Take that one there. Okay, so it's coming to a place of understanding that when we weren't able to receive, we had a lot. We've had times in our lives where we've had a lot. Even very recently, maybe we had a lot. But we weren't able to go into that with the fullness of love, because of all the things that we've been looking at here, where we shut ourselves off. And so subsequently we have to be accountable for the fact that then we create the experience. Now sometimes you can just be in a very toxic situation, but even still there, if you were in a place of love, you would have known that right away. You wouldn't have gone through a year or 2 years or 3 years or 6 months or whatever it is suffering, you know? And it's not about blaming. It's not about anchoring yourself in negative vibrations. It's about acknowledging how those states of mind create our path forward, and then compound. We build on them, and then eventually it becomes something much bigger than it needs to become. And the reason I say that is because what we let go of, what we were forced to let go of with that sword of justice there, was our tendency to not be able to value the things in our lives that are important to us. That we were too intent on finding something else, that there was always something more to attain, to, so we weren't nurturing the things that were good in our lives, which would have then sustained us and made us see that we needed to make different choices, right? So that's the clarifier there for that. The base of this energy here is being in two minds. We have the Two of Pentacles at the foundation of our reading. So where we've struggled, what's gotten us into the imbalance, what's caused us to feel anger, what's caused us not to be able to find forgiveness, what's caused us to shut ourselves off from other people, from the wisdom that they may have to share with us, and what's kept us trapped, imprisoned, and unable to grow and evolve. Is this juggling energy? Trying to be in two mindsets, trying to juggle two sets of values. And that's normal. That's a part of our evolutionary process, that we are going to be in the position where there's certain things that we're attached to through trauma bonding, through familiarity. It can be something that's not good for us. I mean, I think about, think of those of us that have experienced things like, attachments to addictions, like smoking cigarettes or, drinking alcohol all the time or whatever it is, and these things are, they're not good for us, but they're familiar to us. So they give us a sense of false security. So, this is like having that. And I'm not specifically talking about addiction, so don't feel targeted if you're still struggling with, something. Nobody's pointing any fingers at you. Because there's always something else, right? We give up something, we overcome an addiction, we realize that there's something else in our lives that we need to work on instead, that's just the way it is. So, but these two states of mind are, it's like, well, you think about that. Like, oh, I'm going to do things that are not really very, healthy, and at the same time, I'm going to focus all of my attention on how I look, for example. And then, what's the result you're going to end up with? Well, total imbalance and misery, essentially. So that's just an example of the Two of Pentacles, but you guys all know what the Two of Pentacles is. So wherever that juggling energy is, it's like, it's a problem, and it's something that we all have to overcome. We can't pledge allegiance to two paths, right? That's essentially what it comes down to. I don't need to clarify on that. Coming into our immediate future, we have a Page of Pentacles, which is, this is ultimately, pages are the youngest energy, they're the most unevolved energy, but also the most promising energy. So, this is a promise in terms of our well-being, in terms of how our life manifests itself. So it's something empowering, something that has the potential to be very empowering to us in our lives, that is being given to us. It's an offer of some sort. For me, I can interpret that in the mundane sense as, probably being a job offer, for example. But, that can also be a I mean, it doesn't have to be a job offer. It can be something else, like, oh, figuring out some kind of administrative thing that I've overcome and then I don't have to deal with that ever again. Or, you know, I bought my car, I won't have a car payment anymore. That kind of stuff, you know what I mean? But it can also be something that you've removed from your life that now opens up more of an ability to build tangibly in your life for your betterment, right? Again, no clarifier on that. We already did the Six of Pentacles as our sharing energy. I do think I'll take a clarifier on that, actually. What is our crowning energy of this give and take and even flow? We have the Fool and the Knight of Cups. So again, yes, it's about letting go of all of these obstacles that get in the way of forgiveness, that get in the way of balance within us, and in order to have a brand new start, and in order to learn to receive. Because most of us probably, if we really like think about it, and if somebody else looking at us would probably be able to see it better than we can, our biggest problem, even though we might think that we're, you know, we take too much from other people or other things, or all we do is like, you know, receive money from our jobs or whatever it may be, we have a real hard time receiving, all of us, especially people who are empathic or people who are hypersensitive or people that are generally good-hearted, but you know, they're also sometimes, most of the time actually, overcompensating for the fact that they didn't receive what they needed. And so, you know, and they're also blocked where they don't think that anybody can give them what they want or what they need. So therefore, that gets in your way too, right? So there is that. And the Knight of Cups is there basically to say, well, you know, get over it, because there's going to be some flourishing emotionally in your life that's going to force you out of your comfort zone, however that manifests. Again, I can't go into details because I don't do mundane predictive astrology, I mean tarot in that way, but you'll figure out how it applies to you. In our present, we find ourselves, thank goodness, graduating from that Two of Pentacles energy into a Two of Wands energy, which is where we are empowered in our choices, where we have, I don't want to say expectations, but where we can allow ourselves the self-confidence to know that we are going to, that we're worth choices, that we're worth having options. That's really what that is in this Taurus energy, right? And environmentally, you know, what's reflected back to us is the Taurus card, so that's always nice to see, the Hierophant. But also structure. That's what I'm getting from this. I mean, the Hierophant can mean many, many different things, but this is about structure. This is about the opportunity to finally have structures that serve our growth. They're starting to manifest. That can be new routines. Maybe you've had something difficult that's happened in recent times, in the last, you know, year or 6 months or 3 months or whatever period of time. And so there's been a lot of chaos as a result of that. This is the indication that you're coming into a time now where we're moving beyond that, you know. I am doing predictive reading for you today, which is really unusual for me, but it seems to be what was in the cards for us. So I hope you're not offended by that if you wanted to only focus on bigger picture stuff. But sometimes when we're in these pivotal moments, we need a little bit more grounded structure in our readings, right? And that's what we're getting. So again, I'm not going to take a clarifier on those cards because they are broad strokes that can affect us all individually in different ways, but there's a commonality in terms of what they serve to do, right? Good news about how we're feeling about ourselves in our mind, psychology, we have the Queen of Wands. So Queen of Wands is a renewal of self-confidence. It's a feeling of being informed and emboldened with what is needed to meet the tasks that at hand that present themselves on this evolutionary journey forward. There's a lot of progress here. There's like this idea, what I'm really feeling like intuitively is that there's something big, pivotal, shifting, and then there's a lot of learning because we've got pages. What I didn't tell you, because we had the Page of Pentacles in our immediate future, and we had the bottom of the deck was the Page of Wands. So we moved from the Page of Wands to the Ace of Wands at the center of our reading, right? And the Ace of Wands, the page carries the Ace of Wands. So a huge move forward of really like lightening our load and having a new kind of emotional freedom and a bit of a bounce to an energetic bounce to our stride moving forward, right? And we need that after being on all this Piscean energy, and actually a lot of the things that we've been going through with Saturn and Pluto. So, and Pluto right now is really, I'm starting to really understand, I feel like Pluto is shifting, because, you know, Pluto is going retrograde at the end of this week. And when Pluto goes retrograde, that will break this little period of time when all the planets were direct. And, you know, the funny thing for me is that, I don't know whether you've done your astral charts, but, you know, I have I think 2 retrograde planets in my birth chart and 1 stationary planet. And, you know, I always used to feel really uncomfortable about retrograde energy because I'd just be like, oh God, it's like a failure, or it's like you're doomed to fail, or there's going to be so much more difficult for you than it will for everyone else. Which again, the older you get, the more experience you get, and the more open you are to the game of life and the evolutionary process that we can study through tarot and spirituality in general, the more you actually realize that things that are challenges are actually what make your life most interesting. You know, you wouldn't want the simplest, most basic chart. And, you know, maybe that does feel great when your life is, I don't know, I'll never know consciously what that's like. Maybe I've had it in a previous life, but you know, things didn't just go all hunky-dory and easy for me in this life, and I don't think that they did for you either. And so, you know, those challenges are what made change happen. That's what allowed us to experience something completely different and have faith and hope in, you know, exhilaration and positivity and, you know, beauty and love, right? So again, I forget where I went with that, but our outcome card, very interesting. The Page of Swords. The Page of Swords, again, page energy, beautiful, but very much the learner, very much the having a beginner's mindset, being in the position where we can accept that we are on a new journey, and then in order to embrace that new journey, we have to let go of all of the baggage, we have to let go of all the things that have anchored us in whatever we were anchored in before that was holding us back. That is the freedom and the transformation, because those are the, you know, this is literally what I'm looking at. I can't show you without making a mess of everything, but I'm looking at this with these 2 cards on either side, you know, that we already saw. Transformation and freedom. This is what the Page of Swords represents. This is having a thirst for new knowledge and having the humility to understand that this gift that we've been given it requires stepping back and accepting that everything is new. And on that note, I'm going to leave you because I just suddenly got this radical urge to say that this is the end of the reading. So it's 1 hour. Woo! Anyway, I love you. Happy whatever, black moon, eclipse. Let it all go. Let it go. Embrace the new. That's what this is all about. Something massive is shifting energetically. Let it in. Acknowledge it. Feel it. Even if you're not feeling it right now, sit with it. Be open to it. It's there. I promise.